Well, that was something. Okay, so I know that pretty much all anyone would be talking about is the tribal council, but I'm going to touch upon the other stuff because it did happen and it does play into a little bit of my feelings as to what happened at the tribal ride. So, Dooku gets back from tribal, nothing really to mention there. Then we've got that reward challenge, and I was a little bit surprised when Anuku got ahead that much, but really it was just because, like with Amana in the immunity challenge, they were just able to get the puzzle, it just managed to work out for them, so then they were just able to keep on going, and then Ozzy was able to get that slingshot bit, because in Worlds Apart, which I think was the last time they mainly used this challenge, both Mike and Dan had a good amount of success in a row on that thing, although Mike took a long while to get how to operate the thing, and Dan just could not figure out how to get it into that center bit, although I kind of don't totally like that center one, because the thing with that one is that it has these boards on the side, so you have to get it in a slot, like this, whereas the others are just, open. They've got a huge window for it to drop into. That kind of gets to me because there was a couple of challenges in Nicaragua and Redemption Island where they had to, throw a ball up in the air and have it land right on a tile. Well, all those tiles were exactly the same. Not a big deal, but I'm just saying that one target, yeah. But I wasn't too picky about them getting it because there really wasn't that much at stake in the reward challenge. And it turns out what the last next time on bit was teasing us for this episode really wasn't much. It's just standard bits of everyone, being down, being away for so long, being deprived of everything, and they just realize, I don't think of things the same way. And it's nice that they mention this because they don't really talk about it any more, which is a bummer because, old school Survivor was all about, I haven't, been away from everyone for all this. Because, I think Big Brother actually does do a little better at discussing this stuff, but of course, as has been said time and time again, Big Brother is either 2.5 or 3 times as long as Survivor, so yeah. But that was a touching moment from Brad. It goes to show that even back in Blood vs. Water, he was aware of stuff. He just played a stupid game, but as he mentioned in his exit interviews with Pav back in the day, had Monica not been there, he would have played the game way differently, and he has been, and it's been a real interesting surprise there, yeah. Okay, and I don't really think there was anything on Nuku before the immunity challenge, so unlike the reward challenge, I didn't really feel like Mana was too far behind, and even though Brad and I think maybe one other person was struggling to release those buoys, it's not exactly easy for people to dive down, 10 feet, and untie those things, because that's something that's odd about, the human body, based on stuff that I've heard from my dad and my uncle, where, putting only a little more pressure on the body can really hinder it in many situations, because, if you go underwater by more than a couple of feet, all of a sudden, you've got all kinds of pressure on you, and your lung capacity, strongly diminishes, and then there's people who can't even stand being in 10 feet of bits of water because all the pressure that's on their head just drives them crazy. Or, if you go into wind gusts more than a certain speed, I forget what it is, suddenly you can't do as much, because, just today, I had to bike home from school, and I had to bike into the wind almost the whole way back. It took a lot longer than it should have. Right. So, I had a feeling that there was a good chance that they would be able to catch up, and, in the end, they ended up pulling it out, and I was glad that they did, because I didn't really want to see that tribe go to tribal. I mean, I didn't totally want to see Nuku go either, because I was feeling a little sorry for Jeff Varner compared to Sandra, but I decided on the whole it's either I feel sorry for one person or I feel nervous or worried for several people. So you can tell what I chose, obviously, and it was because Hallie was able to get the brain wave that it began, with the meta bit, like with the legend thing that I mentioned in the last video. Unscramble that to form a country, right? So it becomes fairly obvious that Jeff's probably doomed, but at first he seems to be taking it pretty well, but then like with Colby and HVV, he throws around the most obvious bit he can to put Ozzy under the bus, which would make sense because the show has begun to set a precinct, albeit these people didn't know it because Millennials vs. Gen X hadn't aired yet. That merge happens at 13, and Ozzy has shown that he's pretty good at individual immunities because so far he's won 7, which I'm pretty sure puts him at second highest out of men because, Buster Rump has 9, Ozzy has 7, he might get into more because he's already the person with the most amount of days in the history of the show. He has to have beaten Rob's record at this point. Yeah, so what's to say he can't do it again? Oh, sure, you argue he's 10 years older. Well, 10 years doesn't always affect people because, what's a good example? Well, Jervis, he wasn't that affected by not being on the show for 13 years, And half the reason Colby was so ineffective was because he went onto HVV with a 4% body fat, and if you don't have body fat when you are starving, guess what goes? Your muscles, so yeah. That doesn't excuse everything, but that was half the reason, right. Okay, so he starts throwing that around, and he was getting the fire lit, but as I mentioned in Blood vs. Water, Ozzy was in a good leadership position, and as I said back then, rarely ever is someone in that kind of a position blindsided the first opportunity. Usually, it's the second or third time. Because something tells me, even though Ozzy is a good challenge beast, he's not going to win immunity next episode, but albeit that's not much of a bet, because I've got a 1 in 13 chance of being proven wrong, so yeah. Okay. So then everyone goes up to Tribal, but I'm like, hang on a second, we've got 12 minutes left in the episode. That's a little bit ridiculous, having about a quarter of the episode take place at Tribal, but then we get to the bits where Jeff getting understandably desperate, wanting to stay alive, but then he crosses the line and then outs Zeke as being transgender, and I had heard some people, arguing that he was transgender, but the thing was, they were the kind of people that didn't like transgender people, so I couldn't tell if they were just saying stuff for the hell of it, or were people who watched the show but happened to have that caveat, because, I follow this competitive eater named Randy Santel, and there's quite a lot of trolls in the comments of his videos that try and claim that he's transgender or that he's gay, and, really? But they act, so similarly that I'm like, it's not really worth listening to, so I'm like, wait, he's really transgender? But then, of course, because he doesn't say anything at all, he is, because when it comes to that kind of a thing, anything other than 100% no is yes. Really, when it's phrased that way. But yeah, that hit home, and I got kind of sad while all that was going on, because you look at Zeke and he's like, just blandness, and there was just nothing he could do, just 3 seconds, and his secret's out. Now, to be fair, okay, a couple of things, because some will argue, I wouldn't really argue this, that because he's already gay, being transgender is not that much of a switch, and And it's also possible to argue from some people's perspectives, I don't think I share this, that you can be gay and transgender at the same time. I don't really know, because like I haven't totally figured out, the idea of transgender. Don't explain it to me all over again. I'll figure this out on my own, okay? I'm not going to make a judgment. Alright, but in case you're wondering, yes, if I support same-sex marriage, of course I support transgender rights, and Jeff does bring up a valid point, being in North Carolina, which at the time still had House Bill 2 in effect, although they actually replaced it with something much worse, let me tell you. That he's not necessarily against them, but still though, outing someone in the manner that you did when it really wouldn't have helped you, because I got the idea going into Tribal that he was going to be voted out either 6-1 or 5-2 with his vote going for Ozzy. So, yeah, dude, you didn't have to do that, and you dug yourself a hole that was even greater, because everyone was like, we like you, but you're on the outs from us, even though, I really do not think that this is a Nuku versus Mana thing. It just so happens that out of this tribe of 7, sorry, Ozzy, Andrea, Ty, and Zeke, well then who am I forgetting? Because there's Debbie, who was missing for a while. Wait, okay, no, start over. Ozzy, Sarah, Andrea, Ty, Zeke. There we go. Those 5 have been together the entire time, if memory serves, so they don't really have a reason to turn on each other because nothing has been lit there. So that just leaves Jeff and Debbie, who was with them for a little while. Yeah. So, just, yeah, craziness. And that's really all I can say on the issue. I do agree with everyone in that there really wasn't a reason for them to vote, although it's still a little bit of a bummer for Jeff not being able to cast his vote, but like it wouldn't have helped, because even if he hadn't said this stuff, he was going to go anyway. Only person that might have gone with him is Zeke, but yeah. And the sad part is, he probably wouldn't have gotten a call to come back for a 4th time anyway, but now there's definitely no chance of that, even though he definitely still has his support, because Dalton Ross and Rob Sesternino repeatedly stated don't go on social media bashing him, and I'm not going to do that, because I can tell that unlike Caleb and Jeff Schroeder, he actually got real remorse for his actions, and he did actually apologize correctly. Take some notes, you two. But, yeah. It's tough because, I feel sorry for everybody, having to have something that doesn't even relate to the game be introduced, Zeke for being thrust in the spotlight that he didn't want, Jeff for making one of the biggest mistakes in his life, because there was a time where, during my first channel, that I called a couple of people out, as being gay because they were bothering me, and I'm like trying to get back at them. That was stupid, but I don't get into that stuff anymore, and as I've said repeatedly on this channel, I barely get any troll comments because I've vastly improved my level of professionalism in these videos, so, right. Okay, I think that sums it up. See ya.